Hello friends, I am Deepak Balodi and today we are to start with the topic PN junction diode and its applications. So this is the second chapter or second topic which we will be continuing with. In this, let us first see what different contents we will be looking on. So a PN junction diode, as we all are familiar, that it's the very basic element which is used in electronics directly or indirectly. Means you can find the utilization of diode in number of ways. One, it is directly in use in many wave shaping circuits. For example, rectifiers, clippers, which is the special case of this. Rectifiers could be considered as the special case of some clippers only. Then clampers and some various other circuits also. So these are some names which are very popular, but other than this, we have lot many circuits in which we can use diode, and basically we are exploiting its unidirectional property in the wave shaping circuits. So most of those applications are basically non-linear. Then secondly, it is important to study the diode, PN junction diode and its applications. Mainly it is important to study the semiconductor theory behind diode, because the semiconductor theory of diode is directly or indirectly is utilized or is being used in the complex study of more complicated devices like transistors, like BJT and FET. In BJT, it is the PN junction diodes are directly involved, and if one somebody is very much clear about PN junction diode, then only he or she can better understand the concepts behind bipolar junction transistor and behind the scene, behind the picture, what is actually happening at the semiconductor level, at the microscopic level. So therefore, this makes the foundation for many complicated, or I can say advanced devices. Advanced means in the relative term, comparatively advanced, like BJT and FET. Their MOSFET or JFET. Though in FET, a junction is not directly involved, but it has a lot of influences in the device physics behind these devices. Whereas in bipolar transistor, the PN junction theory is directly involved. So these two things, they always motivate us to study the diodes, their semiconductor theory in depth. So let us continue. Now, as I said, let us formulate what different topics we'll be looking at in this chapter. So, a part of some basic introduction to the diode, will be mainly dividing this part into PN junction diode study and its application. And this I can say, like in this part, we'll be mainly dealing with the semiconductor theory, operation and IV characteristic. And application, as the name itself indicates, we'll be looking at various applications. So into this part, I'll mainly divide diode into three forms. One, I would say, the open circuit condition. Then reverse bias condition. And third is forward bias condition. So we'll be looking at these three, we'll be studying the whole PN junction diode theory under these three major topics. So once we understand what happens to the diode when it is in the open circuit condition, which is mainly indicates the equilibrium condition. This scenario makes us ready to understand that what could happen in the cases when it is reverse bias or forward bias. So this open circuited scenario makes a foundation for the more practical form of diode circuit, that is either reverse bias or the forward bias. So these two topics mainly will involve the microscopic study or the semiconductor study behind the PN junction. But as we'll move on to the forward bias condition, we'll be slightly moving towards the IV characteristic, the terminal characteristic, the circuital current, voltages and all. So let us start with the open circuit condition. But before that, let us cover few basic topics. So that only I'll be starting with, or I'll be labeling under the topic open circuit condition. In the open circuit condition, as the name itself indicates, we are not having diode in a closed loop, it is open circuited. So let us first see, as it's very basic, but in order to complete this formality, let us first introduce what a diode is and how it is made by. So a diode is basically a combination, a PN junction diode is basically a combination of a P-type bulk material of silicon and an N-type bulk material of silicon, and when they are joined, then the junction between P and N creates the PN junction, and this whole structure is called PN junction diode. So in our whole study, we'll be studying or we'll be looking at PN junction diode like we are bringing P and N junctions, P and N bulk regions in together, but this is not practically happening in today's integrated circuit era. There basically we are forming a P region into an already developed N region, or we are doing vice versa, means already an N region is available to us and we are doping some P level into it. So the practical development of PN junction is much more complicated, but it always is an beneficial task or beneficial thing to come up with a simple understanding of PN junction diode, like we are bringing together, we are making in touch a separate P junction, a separate P material and a separate N material. Like if they were isolated, then in the isolated form, let's indicate left side P and this side N. And in the whole study of PN junction diode, one assumption will be making that both the sides, both the regions are being developed, or they have been doped to the same material. They are doped. The P region is generally obtained by the doping of acceptor ions or acceptor atoms. So the acceptor impurity has been doped here, and one example of that is boron. The other examples are third column elements like boron or aluminium. We generally do not go much below than aluminium, because then the atoms becomes heavier, and all these things we have already seen in semiconductor theory part 1. So let us quickly see the other side. Means on the N side we are having the donor impurity. Donor impurity is also called pentavalent impurity, that we have already seen in chapter 1. Acceptor impurity is also called trivalent impurity. So donor impurity, or some controlled amount of donor impurity, the one good example is arsenic. So arsenic and phosphorus, these are two very widely used impurities for the silicon. Similarly, boron or aluminium are very popularly used impurities for this. So as we move below in the columns, third or the fifth column, then atoms becomes heavier and it becomes difficult to process them in the integrated circuit. So we generally restrict ourselves up to the boron aluminium on the third column, and up to the phosphorus or arsenic to the fifth column. That all these discussions we have already seen in chapter or in the topic number 1. So how do they look like? Means there is an acceptor impurity into a P type of material, then we should understand, or we should very clearly know, that basically when it was pure, when it was intrinsic, then the whole intrinsic silicon, either this or this, was same, and they were governed by the pure silicon atom, and ideally there were no impurity. So all any single silicon atom, one atom was covered by the remaining 4 or the other 4 silicon atoms via covalent bond. When we insert okay, let me first give some numbers. Intrinsic carrier concentration we have already seen for silicon at room temperature is around 1.08 into 10 to the power 10 per centimeter cube, and some good impurity, a moderate impurity rating is around Na, which we indicate here. The impurity concentration, the number of atoms per centimeter cube of boron. Similarly, the donor impurity concentration is indicated by Nd. So some standard values are Na or Nd is 10 to the power 14, 15 or 16 per centimeter cube. 10 to the power 15 is a good number. 10 to the power 17 or 18, or in fact 10 to the power 16 is considered to be a heavily doped diode, whereas 10 to the power 13 or 14 sometimes is considered as a lightly doped semiconductor. So most frequently, if I have to take an example, I will be considering this. So all these things again we have already seen in the chapter number 1. So I'm giving just a brief overview to all those things. So this side is being doped by 10 to the power 15 number of atoms. So out of 10 to the power 15 number of atoms, if we consider a case of complete ionization, this we have seen in chapter 1, then we can consider that each atom of Na, that means of boron, has contributed one hole. So in that case, the amount of holes which have been contributed by acceptor impurities is 10 to the power 15, whereas the number of atoms of silicon in the background are 10 to the power 23 per centimeter cube, approximately 10 to the power 23 or 22 per centimeter cube. But out of them, only 10 to the power 10 electron as well as holes are available. So when we insert 10 to the power 15 number of free carriers in addition to the 10 to the power 10, then 10 to the power 15 proves to be such a high number so that it overshadows, or it makes the effective number as 10 to the power 15 only. So therefore, if I have to call some effective number of free carriers in the P side, then I'll be calling it almost equal to Na. Similarly, to this side, if I have to call the effective number of concentration of electrons, then I'll be calling it approximately Nd. And similarly here, they are approximately, the concentration of holes will be approximately Na, because the pre-existing silicon free carriers, the free carriers provided by silicon atoms were so small in number, so that the intruders or the guest carriers are very large in numbers, and they mainly constitute the amount of total free carriers. So now in this, how to draw a picture, or let us finalize some convention which are very beneficial for drawing and very beneficial to understand the concept. So in this we'll be indicating, or the scenario is now a boron atom, a single boron atom out of the boron doping is 10 to the power 15 out of 10 to the power 23 atoms of silicon. So it is like out of 10 to the power 8 atoms of silicon there is one boron atom. So therefore one boron atom, if we concentrate on that, as being surrounded by 4 silicon atoms by covalent bonds, and it has made 4 covalent bonds, but in fact this was having only 3 free electrons. So if it makes 4 covalent bonds, then it is assumed to have 1 free hole associated with it. So therefore in short we can draw it like, if a boron atom provides 1 free hole, and if we consider that free hole separate to the boron atom, then the remaining boron atom actually becomes an ion, and that too is negative ion because it has contributed 1 free hole that is positively charged. So the remaining atom would become an ion, and that too a negatively charged ion. So that is this. Now we always associate this small hole, this is free hole which is contributed by single boron atom, and the remaining atom becomes an ion which is immobile in nature, so we can call them immobile or sometimes fixed ion, and here it is negative in nature, negatively charged. Please understand that any intruder or any guest atom, any impurity atom was originally neutral, but as soon as it enters, it tries to make a covalent bond to the surrounding silicon atoms, and in order to do so, either it contributes a hole in the case of p-type doping, or it contributes an electron in the case of n-type doping. So when it contributes a free hole like boron, then the remaining boron atom is considered to be a negatively charged ion. So we always draw this free hole in the neighborhood of that ion in order to understand that this hole was provided by this atom or ion. So okay, this is a shortcut to understand. Similarly here the scenario is 1 arsenic ion out of some 10 to the power 8 silicon atoms will be finding 1 arsenic atom. As soon as it comes in, it forms the 4 covalent bonds with the 4 neighboring silicon atoms, but in order to do so it has to contribute 1 electron. So that 1 electron, let me indicate by this minus sign. Then in the shortcut we can represent it like this, where this indicates the free electron, and the remaining atom becomes actually a positively charged ion, that is immobile or fixed ion, which is positively charged. So please remember, any acceptor impurity that is either boron or aluminium, in this case I have considered as boron, when it provides or contributes 1 hole, actually it provides a positive charge carrier, that is 1 hole, but once it provides a positively charged carrier, that is hole, then the remaining atom actually becomes an ion, that is a negative ion. But why I call it immobile or fixed? Because the neutral atom has lost 1 hole only, so therefore the remaining atom, which has now become ion, is still so large and so heavy in strength, so that it cannot be moved, it cannot be conducted in the commercial electric fields which we'll be applying in the diode or in circuit applications. So therefore, for all those commercial values of electric field or voltages potential difference, the conduction is very, very small, or they only agitate at their places. They are lattice atoms or lattice points, so they only have some agitation kind of thing, they only vibrate, and they still are attached in a covalent bond scenario, so they cannot contribute in conduction. So the remaining ion is actually immobile in nature. So for the conduction point of view, we should not focus this immobile or fixed ion. They are not of use, they are not of interest. The only thing of interest is either free hole or free electron. So therefore now the picture is this. So this is generally the picture, and when we look at p-type impurity, here we are only showing the impurity atoms or ions and the free carriers associated with them or provided by them. We are not showing the host silicon atoms because they are not of use, because the carriers provided by them were so small. But out of this scenario, we should remember one thing, that our focus is the free carrier, because they can only contribute in conduction. The remaining ion can only contribute in creating some space charged region or creating some electric field, but they cannot contribute in conduction for sure. So similarly, if I draw this scenario here, this scenario would be sometimes looks some laborious work, some boring task, but once we draw it and we understand this picture, it becomes very simple to understand the complicated, relatively complicated concepts of junction diode. So therefore we should be some patience. Now these two are the isolated or separated p regions and n regions. Now if we understand their scenario and we are ready to have this understanding of the impurity doping, then we are ready to understand that what happens when we bring them together. But please remember, I am telling that in the practical scenario of the integrated circuits, it is not like we are adhesing or we are bringing them together. It is like we are doping, or we are having some ion implantation or diffusion processes to develop some shallow or some nice profile p or n regions into a pre-existing p or n regions. So therefore this simple explanation is not applicable in the practical scenario, but whatever results will be developing here are more or less accurate for that practical scenario as well. So therefore this simple understanding is okay, or it is enough to understand the practical scenarios also. So now let us understand that what happens when we bring them together. And please remember the concentration difference. Here purposely I have shown the different concentration. I have considered a case where Nd, the concentration of impurity to the N side, is more than to the concentration of impurity or the doping concentration to the P side. Because if I do so, then with this we can understand a better or a more generic case rather than a very special case where fortunately we can have Na approximately equals to Nd. So that's a very fortunate case. So most of the time we do not land up with that case. So let us have this generic case. So as you can see, in the same piece of volume or in the same piece of width, I have denoted more number of free carriers here, more number of high doping here to this side. So Nd is greater than Na in my example. So once we have understood the the isolated profile of separate P and separate N regions, then let us try to combine them and let's see what is about to happen. This side is left as P, which has been doped by some doping concentration of Na, and side is being doped by some doping concentration of Nd, donor impurity concentration, and the both side, the volume or the width of the diode has been assumed to be same. So with this scenario, we indicated in the circuit model, we indicated like this. So this side, which is the P side, this side, which is the N side, have names of anode and cathode respectively. So P side is called anode and the N side is basically the cathode. So later on we'll come to the circuital understanding of PN junction diode. Let us first focus on the semiconductor level understanding or the microscopic understanding of PN junction diode. So let me draw the same scenario as I have drawn there, that to the P side we have this scenario, and to the N side we have this. Purposely I am making a higher doping concentration to the Nd side. As I have said, you can take the vice versa case, means you can take Na greater than Nd. So with this we will come up with the more generic solutions. So the volume of P and N side is same, but the concentration to the N side, that is Nd, is greater than Na. So as soon, this is the picture at T is equals to 0. As soon as they have brought together, then we know from the basic semiconductor theory of chapter number 1 that if different concentrations have been met together, then the free carriers try to diffuse. There is a diffusion process. So the holes close to the N side or to the metallurgical junction, oh sorry, I did not name this junction, which is the physical junction between P and N, is basically called metallurgical junction. Metallurgical junction, which is basically the physical junction. So the holes close to the metallurgical junction would like to travel across, and they would like to go towards the electron side, and they would try to get combined with them. Similarly, the electrons close to this metallurgical junction will try to diffuse to the hole side, and they will try to combine with holes. So this process will happen, and a few holes will combine with electrons, or you can say the electrons will combine with holes, and this process will be effective, or it will be mainly effective towards the closer to the metallurgical junction, because this diffusion effect will slowly grow up and it will reach towards the bulk side of both the sides. But at the starting T is equals to 0, this will be effective only to the very close proximity of the metallurgical junction. So very soon one hole will get a counterpart here, or they will combine and they will cancel out their existence. Similarly, this hole may combine with this may combine with this may combine with this may combine with this may combine with this. Similarly, this may combine with this, and this may combine with this. So you can see the one, two, three, four, five, 6 holes have been combined with 6, or let me draw 2 more. The 8 holes have been combined with the 8 electrons, because one hole can only combine with 1 electron. So it is the basic of the recombination process. So as soon as they combine, they leave behind their immobile ions or fixed ions, which are basically immobile, they cannot move. So as soon as this process happens, there appears a region there. First of all, these things these atoms will contribute their electrons and holes to get recombined,